Now let us explore some of the lookup functions in Excel, and we will start with the choose function. Now before we proceed further with any form of lookup functions, I would also like to give you a brief idea about the concept of index number. Now whenever you have some set of data in a particular list, we would call it as a list of items. For Excel, it appears as an array, okay, what we also call as a list. Now let us take an example of a list of fruits. So we have apples, and then we have oranges, mangoes, and grapes. And let's add melons as well. Now considering this, let us keep a count on what all list items that we have under this list of fruits. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 line items over here under the list of fruits. Now, what is the index number over here? Now, if this is the list and I want to know which is the third item in this list, this number 3 becomes the index number for Excel. And so Excel will return the value as mangoes. And if I want to know what fruit is mentioned in number 5, so the number 5 becomes the index number. And the moment I give this as an index number, Excel will return the value as melons. So how does this work with the choose function? Let's try this out here. I say choose. Now index number, let's say I want number 4. Fourth in the list. Now I need to specify the list within the choose function. And here it asks for value 1, 2, 3, and so on. So first I'll select apples, comma, oranges, comma, mangoes, comma, grapes, comma, melons. We do not have any more fruits in this list, else the choose function can take a lot more as well. Well, generally it takes up to 254 values only. So we see the fourth in the list is grapes. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4 in this list, and that fourth was grapes. What if I were to shuffle this? Let's say the one in the last, that was melons, I pull it up over here to second position. So we have E7, that is the blue cell, which is apples, and then we have E11, which is melons in this list. In this list of values, melons is second. Then we have oranges, then mangoes, and grapes. If I hit enter, what should be the result? Will it still show as grapes? No. It will show the result as mangoes. Why? Because this is the list of values that you have, and amongst this list, we are asking Excel or the choose function to return the fourth in this list. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fourth one is the green cell, which is mangoes. And this is how the index number is used with the choose function. Now, it would be inconvenient to have the number manually changed over here all the time. So what I would do is I would select this particular place over here. We have this, and then we have the list. So now whatever number I enter in this particular cell, we get the result. So as of now, it gives a hash value error, and make a note of this. Why does it return the hash value error? Remember, by default, Excel considers a blank cell as a 0, and within this list, the index numbering starts from 1, and it can go all the way up to 254. So choose function accepts up to 254 values. Now, if the number right now it's taken as 0, so 0 does not exist in the list because the indexation or the index numbering starts from 1. So -1, -2 or zeros do not fall within this range. If you want to try, you can just test it out. This is the target cell. Let me highlight this, and I put 0. It's a hash value error. If I put 1, you see I get apples. If I put 4, now 4 should have been grapes, but if you remember, I shuffled the list within the choose function, wherein I brought melons to the second in the list within the choose function. I hit enter, and you see it's mangoes as per the choose function. It's just the shuffling done. Now, had I not changed this list and brought melons towards the end and hit enter, you see, number 4 in the list is grapes. Now, this is quite convenient. I hit 5, we have melons. Now, I hit 6 and hit enter. Well, we don't have that. What if I add 6 over here and put something like kiwi fruit? Well, it does not add up to it. It does not pick it up from here because within the choose function, I did not link it. So I need to link the 6th line item, that is kiwi fruit. Now, the moment I hit enter, Excel detects that. Okay, now this is how generally the choose function works in Excel. Now, what is the value of this? We do have a lot many other lookup functions. Why do we need to use a choose function, especially when we have to select each line items in the list like this? Now, every function in Excel has its own specific importance. Although we can perform the same task with multiple functions in Excel at times, but in certain scenarios, there is this choose function that can outshine the VLOOKUP as well. Now, the choose function is very useful when creating scenarios in an Excel-based model, wherein by merely selecting one scenario, we can see its impact across the model. Let me show you how. We have a mini case over here, and we have the sales and expenses figures for the initial 6 months of a business. And we have 3 scenarios over here. Scenario 1, which is optimistic scenario. Scenario 2, which is expected scenario or the base case scenario. And number 3, the third scenario. And the third scenario is pessimistic scenario. Now, I would like to see the final outcome for those 6 months over here. I mean, in terms of total sales, total expenses, what has been the profit before tax, and the tax amount, and profit after tax. Let's figure this out. But first, can we have the totals over here? We can use the sum function, which we had discussed earlier in basic Excel. So we just need to select the numbers, close the brackets. Well, we also have a keyboard shortcut, Alt equal to, that can help us here. Or you might just want to select them as it is and click over here for auto sum. That's the sum. If you were to click on this drop down, you can also perform an average, count, max, min. You can get any of these, but by default, we are going for the sum. So here we have them. And again, click on this. Well, if you were to double click on the cell, you will see the sum function already embedded by Excel. Okay. Now, based on the scenarios over here, I need to get corresponding sales value. And I say, let's say it's scenario 1 that I'm talking about. Now, if I select scenario 1, appropriately, I should see the corresponding sales and expenses from scenario 1. If I select scenario 2, well, for the sales and expenses, we are talking about the totals, not just 1 month. And then for scenario 2, we need the totals here, from here, and for scenario 3, we need totals from here. So let's start with this. We say choose index number. Here we have this, comma. Now it's asking for value 1, 2, 3. We just have 3 scenarios, so I'll select this is for sales. So first scenario, that's optimistic, comma, expected, that comes next in the list, and pessimistic, 3 in the list. As of now, we just have 3 scenarios. We can have a lot more as well. And just close the brackets. Well, you see, the moment I hit enter, scenario 1, this was the first in the list selected. Let me show you. First in the list was the red cell. That's this. And then the purple one. And then the green cell. Now, if I were to change this to 2, well, it comes to this. Let me just do a basic formatting. I would hit Control Shift exclamation and I'll remove the decimals and set this. Now this is a lot better. Can we try a similar thing with the expenses as well? Please try it out by yourself and then come back to this video to see how I complete this. So I say choose, again the index number, and then the value 1, 2, 3. Now ensure that the sequence does not change over here, otherwise it would be quite confusing, because we have clearly stated scenario 1 is this section, scenario 2 is this section, and 3 is this section. If the order of selection is mismatched, then irrespective of whatever scenario that you mention over here, Excel will fail to recognize the right number here. So be very careful when you're selecting the order in which they are to be selected or mapped. Hit enter, and we have this. This is the second scenario. Okay. Now, considering this to be second scenario, let us calculate the profit before tax. And profit before tax should be your income or your sales minus expenses. And that's the profit that you get, but before paying off your taxes. Now, what should be the tax amount? The tax rate is at 20%, so we put an equal sign, select profit before tax, and multiply it with 20%. That is 20% of 509,000. That's 101,800. This is the tax that you would be paying. That's around 20% of your profit before tax. Now, profit after tax is profit before tax minus taxes. And here we have. Now, this seems good, and we can make it look bold. Now, let us try one more thing. This time, I want to try the pessimistic approach. That's scenario 3. I hit enter, and here we have this. 1,090,000 and expenses at 822,000, and then profit before tax has been calculated, taxes calculated, and profit after tax, what you get is 214,400. Now that's quite interesting over here, but let's say we have an alternate approach. Maybe whenever you're presenting this, the group to whom you're presenting may be pessimistic about the sales, and they might consider the expenses equivalent to what we have on the optimistic side. Then how would that be? Scenario. So let's say sales, we say it's 3, and expenses, they are projecting to be as in the optimistic scenario. Now, why is it relevant to optimistic scenario? Because here in this case, we were expecting high sales, and the corresponding expenses to earn that much of money would be around this much. But now we have one member to whom we are presenting to. One of those members say, okay, I'm very pessimistic about your income, and corresponding expenses that you have mapped to is 822. But I feel that the expenses could go even higher considering the scenario, the economic scenario and the cost inflation. I feel this would be approximate range of expenses that you might come across. Now, this is an unexpected scenario. If this is pessimistic scenario, the one that we are talking about now is a false scenario, and that could go even worse. But do I need to create a false scenario? Well, not really. Here, we have made it quite flexible here. Now, all I need to do is use the choose function, index number 3. Now, values. Now, this is about the sales that we are talking about. So, sales for first scenario, sales for second scenario, and sales from the third scenario. Close the brackets. Again, let me get the formatting from here. I'll select this, format painter, and select this. Well, all at one shot. Now, can we have a similar scenario for expenses or a choose function here? Now, this time we are looking for index number 1. Values. Now, this is about expenses that we are talking about. So, expenses, first scenario, second, and third. We close bracket. Here we have this. Now, this is even bad because the amount that would be available with you would be far less than the pessimistic scenario. Let us see. Now, what is profit before tax? We have discussed it earlier. That's sales minus expenses. You see, the amount is far low as compared to the pessimistic scenario. And then taxes, we just have it at profit before tax multiplied by the tax rate. And then profit after tax is profit before tax minus the tax rate, tax amount. And here we have this. So now one of the members was even more pessimistic and came up with this number, wherein considering the lowest income and highest possible expenses. Now this is extremely conservative scenario. So with this, you get an idea that come what may, looking at the current scenario, the amount that you would save after all deduction of your taxes must be around $52,000. And this is how you can play with the scenarios. If someone comes up and says that, you know what, expenses, let's keep it at the expected scenario instead of optimistic or pessimistic range. I just need to change this to 2 and we'll get this value, 1106,000. And here we have this, you see, the expenses are even higher now, and that does not sound good here. Now, these numbers would have come up based on the historical experience, the 6 months, how the cost and expense management has been handled. Accordingly, we have the totals here. Now here, at one shot, we can just change this to 1, and we have the optimistic approach all across. But here we need to manually change this for both the scenarios, and then it takes care. So approach 2 appears more versatile as compared to approach 1. But let me tell you, if I were to select expense as 4th scenario, we do not have the 4th scenario. It will return the hash value error. So let's undo this, and here we have this. Okay. So let's say we have sales at pessimistic approach and expenses as per the expected scenario. That's the 2nd scenario. So we hit enter and we are close to negative. So this is how we try to tackle this. If I were to select 1, here we have some profits, right? So this is the way how we would set the approach and make the best use of the choose function there. Now let us explore the VLOOKUP function. We have already worked on this list earlier, and we had calculated the grades and we had determined the grades with the help of the ifs function. But now we can achieve the same result with the help of the VLOOKUP function. Now when we say VLOOKUP, that's essentially vertical lookup. So it lookups for a particular value in a set of data that is arranged in a vertical format. Now here we have this in a vertical format. Now what would be the horizontal format? It would be something like this. Let's say I copy this, right click, paste as transpose. Okay, that's transpose. It changes the layout, which is also available from paste special. And here we have this transpose. Click OK, and here we have this. So the parameters are given in a horizontal format. In this case, we cannot use the VLOOKUP function. What comes handy would be the HLOOKUP function, which we'll also discuss about later. For now, let me undo this, and we have this here. So VLOOKUP is vertical lookup, HLOOKUP is for horizontal lookup. And let me show you how this works. So we have VLOOKUP, lookup for what? Now this is something you would feel as if I'm talking to the VLOOKUP function, I'm talking to Excel. So first, VLOOKUP function asks me lookup value. Lookup for what? I say lookup for 72.5, and then when you hit comma, the next thing it asks for is table array. In other words, VLOOKUP is asking, where should I search for it? So I select this entire list over here. I could have also selected just one column, but I need the grades, and grades is in the 2nd column. So we select the entire list here, and next, if I hit comma, it asks for column index number. It's as if VLOOKUP is telling me, okay, in this given list over here, if I find the number that you're looking up for, what should I do? Which column value do you want me to return? In the selected range, we want the grades, and grades are in the 2nd column. So we say number 2. Now range lookup, it asks, if I say exact match, that's false. If exact match is selected, Excel will search for 72.5 in this list, which does not exist. Hence, by selecting exact match and closing the brackets, it will return the hash any error, which means of all the items given in this list, 72.5 does not exist. Well, in case if you want, you can test it out. We just put 72.5 here and hit enter. Well, you see, you have the grade C here. That's how the exact match works. But we know that the grades cannot always be the same as given in the score sheet over here or the reference table. So we do not want the exact match. We need the approximate match. And approximate match, the values in the first column of table array must be sorted in ascending order, it says. They must be sorted in ascending order. And if your order is haywire, then you just can't get it. You see, it's an approximate match. And we had all these things over here in the ascending order. And it just worked. We have the grades over here. Now, what if this was not arranged in the ascending order and it was a random order? Let's say this was, here we have 80 and then 60 and then leave this at 70 and then 50. And then we have something like 40 and then 100 and then 90. So this is quite a random list over here, right? And take a look, what is the score that it's showing here? The grade that it is showing to me is B. Now, why did it show B? 40? It didn't make sense. 50? Should have shown the D grade at least. D or maybe F grade, something like that. Okay, because it's somewhere between 70 and 80. Either D or F should have made some sense, but neither did it show. It showed the B grade. That's the value which was in the list, the last most value over here that we had. Okay, it did show the corresponding results, and many a times you will not find any logic over here. So let me undo this. That was quite an effort here. So here we have the true, that's the range lookup, that's we have selected as approximate match and hit enter. Now, in case if you are searching for any specific name, then I would recommend use the exact match. That would be helpful when we are working on employee data, any set of employee information. That time, exact match comes handy because we wouldn't like to see any approximate deviation there. Now, coming to this, I would like to copy paste this formula down, but for this, I need to first log the reference here. And since I'm copying the formula down, I can only log the row reference. I do not need to log the column reference. That should be fine. Hit enter. You have this. Drag this down, or maybe you might just want to move your mouse to this small square here. Once I click here or move my mouse here, the cursor changes. I just double click on it and it comes down. Let's cross verify. 49.5 is below 50, hence it's an F grade. 82.75 is below 90, so that's a B grade. Alright, now let's say what if I had a 0 over here instead of 72.5. That means maybe the student didn't get any answer correct. So if this was to be 0 and hit enter, it's an F grade. So that means although it is less than 50, it did not show E grade, it showed the one above. Similarly, if I hit 0, it did not show anything above, but rather it showed F grade because that was the closest match to the list. Now, one important thing to note, whenever you search for some value in a particular array, the VLOOKUP function will always search for this value in the first column of your selection. Since we had selected these two columns, it worked perfectly. But what if it was something different? Like, now let's say we have states over here. We are talking about the United States within the United States and the state codes. Now, let's say I have Washington, DC, and the state code is DC. Let's expand this list and fix the spelling here. State codes. We have DC, and then we have California, and that's CA, and Illinois, that's IO, New York, that's NY, and then we have Pennsylvania, and we call it as PA. That's the code for this. I guess we have a decent amount of list over here. We do not need to venture further. Okay, if this is the list, and now here I say state code, I enter something here, and the state should appear over here. What if I am mentioning about some postal address, and I'm typing a postal address, and I want the corresponding state code to be visible here? Let's put this state code here. Okay. And I say I want New York. So NY is the state code. Now I do not know which state is it. Let's assume I do not know which state is it for. So I would say VLOOKUP. Lookup for what? Lookup for NY, comma, in this list, comma. If the value matches, I want the corresponding state over here. So I select 1 because the state's name are in the state names are in the first column. So we say this, and this time I want the exact match. I do not want the approximate match here, because PA or NY, if it turns out like NU, it might give me some other result, but it will give me a result which might be incorrect. So I want the exact match. I hit enter. It gives me a #NA error. Now what exactly happened here? It was searching for NY in this list, but VLOOKUP by default searches in the first column. It does not search in the second column. And that's one limitation of the VLOOKUP. So be very careful in case if you come across this scenario, maybe you might want to just move this here, or if you're not allowed to move, and then you might just copy this list here and paste it, or maybe you might want to cut or move this from here to here. We have the sequence, whatever I'm looking for, and then I change this reference from here to here, and then it will work. You see, it will work. But look at this selection. I said that if NY is found in this list, return column 1 value. Now it's no longer column 1. The states are in the second column. So I say number 2 and hit enter. It worked, right? So shuffling with the list is possible solution for you to deal with this. But that is something generally not recommended, and often in many companies or many form of data sets, it may not be allowed. You may not be allowed to make any form of changes. So many a times you will have a lot of blank cells somewhere far away. People would just select the list, something like this. Select the list. You have this list over here. Okay, these are the list of countries. Now this is something like a rough work which is not visible to anyone. This could be a hidden cell as well. You can hide this, and that's fine. But if you have something like this, irrespective of whether there are blank cells or no blank cells, it does not matter. How do I do this now? I say equal VLOOKUP, lookup for NY in this list. Now here we have the state codes in the first column. That's perfect. And we have the names of the states here far away. So I select the entire range, comma. Now it asks for the column index number. As in like, okay, if I find NY, which column's value do you need? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th column in the selection range. So we put number 7 here, comma. I want an exact match. Close the bracket, hit enter. Here we have this. And this is how exactly it works. We had selected this range. We ignored the starting one because the value that you're looking for should always be in the first column. Now, at times you might have, let's say there is a state name that you have over here like Georgia, which is GA, and it's not found in the list. Okay, that's absolutely fine over here. And let's say this is a genuine case and you cannot avoid the NA error unless and until the list is updated. So in order to fix this issue, we have something called as the if error function. And likewise, we also have the if any function. And these functions can help you work or return values the way you need them to present in case if there is this error.